It is now my pleasure to introduce Caitlin Clapacs, Senior Director of Clinical Operations at Priovant Therapeutics. Caitlin will present highlights from phase 2 Beacon study in cutaneous and sarcoidosis. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here today. Just a really quick thank you to, first of all of you for taking the time today to this community. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And thank you, of course, to Paula, Pam, Dr. Obi, and all the wonderful folks within the SRI who made today possible. Thank you. And as introduction, I am Caitlin. I'm our Senior Director of Clinical Operations at Priovant. Priovant is a small biotechnology company based in North Carolina. And we are developing a drug called brepocitinib, currently for the treatment of cutaneous sarcoidosis, so sarcoidosis of the skin. And let me just share my screen really quickly. Hopefully this is visible to everyone.
Yep.
Perfect. So I'm here to talk really quickly about a recent study we just ran, a phase 2 study called the Beacon study in cutaneous sarcoidosis. I'm not going to share some of the stats because I think it's part of the trivia later, but I will say that, among the sarcoidosis community, about 30% of patients have skin involvement, and there's currently no FDA-approved therapies, so an area of high unmet need, as you all know. And so we recently ran a phase 2 study. It was the first ever placebo-controlled trial for any therapy in cutaneous sarcoidosis and a breakthrough in the field. So really excited to talk through those results with you today. Just quickly give you an overview of the study. It was a 16-week study. Participants were randomized to either one of two doses of brepocitinib, a higher and a lower dose, or to placebo. The patients across the study, whether they were on the placebo arm or the treatment arm, were able to stay on a number of their background sarcoidosis-directed therapies, so things you might be familiar with: methotrexate, hydroxychloroquine, other tetracyclines. And what we looked at in this study is two key things. One, the overall safety of the drug, and then two, a number of different efficacy measures as well. So two that I'll highlight are the CSAMI and the IgA. These are a measure of signs of disease in the skin. So things like inflammation, redness, body surface area, and what it essentially sums a score of all of the areas of the body that are involved and gives you a total score of disease activity, and then the IgA as well. And then, of course, we're very focused on how the patient is doing. And so we looked at a number of patient-reported outcomes that assessed things like how patients' symptoms were doing or changing, how patients felt about their skin sarcoid, and how it was impacting their quality of life across emotional, social, functional elements. And just to give you guys a really brief sense of sort of the baseline demographics of the patients in the study, I won't read all of this, but you can kind of see the highlights here. The one thing that I will draw your attention to is across the arms, the sort of mean score of that skin disease activity. So the CSAMI I mentioned and the IgA, patients started in the mid-30s for their CSAMI score, and around 3 points for their IgA score. So that's where they started when they came into the study. And what you'll see here is on the left-hand side, that is the change in their CSAMI score. So patients on both doses of brepocitinib, our higher and our lower dose, achieved over a 20-point reduction in their disease activity score from week 16 compared to baseline start of study, and compared to much less in placebo, as you can see here. And then on the right-hand side is that IgA score, also a skin disease activity score. And what you're looking at is patients who had a 2-point reduction in their starting score, and then also patients that achieved a 0 or 1 on that scale, where a 0 is clear and a 1 is almost clear skin disease. You can see that 69% of patients on the higher dose, 55% on the lower dose of brepocitinib achieved a score of 0 or 1, and actually no patients on placebo achieved such a score. Now, that, of course, was physician assessment of patient disease, but like I said, we're very focused on how patients are doing, what the impact of quality of life is on their skin sarcoidosis. And so we looked at a number of patient-reported outcomes. One was the Skindex 16, which you may or may not be familiar with. What this looks at is during the past week, it asked patients how much you've been bothered by your skin condition, excuse me, across symptoms like itching, burning, hurting, but then also emotional symptoms and other functional symptoms, your desire to be with people, do daily activities, things like that. And what you can see here is across the 16 weeks, patients on both arms of the brepocitinib study drug achieved a 20-point or greater reduction in that impact on quality of life burden. And patients on placebo actually reported worsening in quality of life burden across the 16 weeks. And another PRO that we looked at was the King sarcoidosis questionnaire that you might be familiar with. This looks at the impact of health status. Specifically here, we're looking at the skin domain of this questionnaire. So how much has your skin disease bothered you, concerned you? How much are you embarrassed by your skin disease? This is looking in the last 2 weeks. And what you can see here is patients, again, on both arms of our study drug reported a significant improvement in their KSQ score from start of study and at the 16 weeks, and then much less, of course, on placebo here. So what's next? Kind of taken all together, we're really excited about the results of this study. We will be moving forward into a phase 3 study in the later part of this year. I did want to highlight that while this study was focused on skin sarcoidosis, we certainly had patients with systemic involvement as part of the study. So lung, cardiac, neuroocular, sort of all the organs that you think of. And we will be posting updates on clinicaltrials.gov, so feel free to go there to look at any kind of study updates and or reach out to your provider and find out, kind of more about this trial or if it might be a fit for you. So thank you. I'll pause there. I think questions are coming at the end, but if anything for me, otherwise, we're really excited about this. We hope we can expand this into a broader sarcoidosis program. And, we're looking forward to potentially bringing a breakthrough therapy to patients in an area of very high unmet need. Thanks, everyone.